Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to episode 13 of the Blacktown Premier League podcast. We've got something different for you this week because there is no official match of the round. You didn't ask for it, but trust me, by the end of it, you're going to be left wanting more. Cue the intro music. That's right, it's time for the mid-season report card. You're about to hear my hard-hitting, fact-spitting, truth-telling opinion on your team. I'm going to spend about 30 to 40 seconds talking about every single one of the 10 Premier League 1 teams, 8 Premier League 2 teams, and 4 Blacktown-based WPL teams, and talk about one thing I've been really either impressed by or enjoyed seeing this season or like in their style of play that I think can help them into the future. I'm then going to talk about one thing that I think could hinder them, be an Achilles heel, has something that I've identified that's either tangible or intangible that could halt them, maybe as they head into the finals or as they head towards the bottom of the table. And then I'm also going to pick out one star player. It's not their best, it might be their best player, but it's also maybe the player who's been underrated in my opinion, who is producing good things for them in the match of the round games, for example, who has perhaps been best and fairest. Something about that. It's just a player who stood out to me. That's what we're going to do for every single club. Just remember as well, this is nothing I wouldn't say on a Match of the Round live stream as well. Just because it's in podcast form and predetermined doesn't mean it's going to be heinous. No one is going to be singled out here unless they're going to be singled out for doing something good, of course. There's no interviews this week. It is just me. So I hope you tune in and can listen to this droning voice for the next 15 to 20 minutes because this is going to be a lot of fun. So stick around and wait until your team pops up. Of course, let me know your opinions in the comment section below. Which team have you enjoyed watching the most this year? I want to hear all of your opinions as well as mine. Let's talk about some great players and talk about some great teams. Let's start with Ropes Crossing. Ropes Crossing sits 7th right now and they're doing their best to move out of that sort of lambasting and mid-table tagline. And that's good. Don't forget, it wasn't too long ago that Ropes Crossing were down looking to get relegated before the COVID cancel season came around. So the improvement is very impressive. What's really stood out to me about Ropes is their consistency. If you look at their team on paper, they have beaten the teams this year that you would say player for player they should be beating. The one game that has sort of been contentious and sort of maybe 50-50 quality on each side is the Tigers game that they've recently lost. The losses have only really come against better teams, except for that Tigers team, which, again, was contentious. What I think their Achilles heel is the fact that Ahmed Badat is such a central figure to their goal scoring that now that he's gone away for a little bit, is that going to stop them from being able to make a finals push in a key part of the season? For example, Ahmed was only able to play the second set of 45 minutes against Tigers. It's a game that they lost by a goal, so had he been on for 45 more minutes, would he have scored a goal? Is the question I ask. Has that impact already been felt? Have they missed out on finals? I'm not sure. Only they can prove us wrong. All right. Their standout player as well, by the way, is Ethan Brannick, their left and right winger, mainly right winger. He is, by the way, a unit who also comes up with a bunch of goals. I'm pretty sure he bench presses 4 times a day, and he's also a good footballer as well. So shout out Ethan Brannick. Let's actually go to Tigers now off the back of talking about Ropes. And the thing that stood out to me is how seamlessly they've transitioned from the PL2 to the PL1. It hasn't been a season where you've gone, wow, they're really under the pump here. They started with a win and haven't really looked back since, despite a couple of big bad losses a couple of weeks ago. What I also like is that their squad is quite organic. They haven't gone to NPL clubs and say, please come and play for us, please come and play for us, which again is a strategy that some teams use, and that's fine, totally fine. But Tigers have done it in a more organic sense, and I think that's rather admirable. They've also started using more of their 21 squad. The team that made the grand final last year against Marion and lost. Some of those kids have come up and played more frequently than they did in PL2 days, so that's even more impressive. What I think will come to the undoing of Tigers if it gets to that point of the season, they make finals, for example, is something that we've talked about with them for so many years now. We've talked to their captain, we've talked to their coach about why this happens. It's a defensive issue that they have where they just switch off. And sometimes they can be ahead in games and they just gas mentally, I think. It's getting better, don't get me wrong. It has gotten way better since the PL2 of 2 years ago days when they didn't get that promotion push. And they've learned so much since then. But 0 clean sheets this year is something to pick up on, and it's very hard to push in finals on 0 clean sheets. If you can't get a scrappy 1-0 win because you concede a goal every game, that's an issue. Player that's really impressed me this year, and I've said it before, is Jared Fife. He's recently had to step up again into first grade space. He did it seamlessly. He scored the first ever Quakers Derby winning goal. His second goal, or the Tigers' second goal, was the second goal of the game. Turned out to be the winner, of course. with Quakers Juniors losing 4-1 to Tigers. But also shout out to Jason Greamer, A, because he's Maltese, and B, because the kid's just turned 18 and he's moving up to first grade, playing 21s and first grade every week. That's very impressive. But also, go Malta. Parkley's Women's Premier League side are killing it again this year. In fact, they've gotten even better, you might be able to say, since last year. They've conceded 4 goals all year. That is absolutely staggering. By far and away the best team defensively in the competition. But their issue has been goals. Now, don't get me wrong. 13 in 7 is nothing to harp on about. It's not, pull your hair out and throw the textbook up in the air. It's totally fine. It's almost 2 goals every game. But compared to Kellyville's 31 in 7, some other teams around them have scored, like Quakers Juniors, who we're going to talk about later, have scored over 20 goals already in their 7 games. So that's a bit more concerning. But how tight they are defensively is something to be bestowed. Their player that I have to pick up on is, of course, all 4 foot of Bridie Rogers. She is fantastic at the back. Probably the best defender in this corner of Western Sydney Local Association football. Shout out to Brittany Rogers, the all-star, of course. Let's move on to the next team. Polonia. Well, if this was a month ago, boys, I'd be talking about you guys. I'd be waxing lyrical about how good you've been. But unfortunately, some season-ending injuries to both Shannon and Michael Cullen have really hurt you guys. And just a bit of tiny creeping in bit of inconsistency has reduced a gap of 6 to 2 points from first to second place, as Glenwood have a chance to take that off you at that first place berth coming this weekend. Their strength is obviously their forward line, by far and away the highest scoring team. What I also really like about Polonia is their positional flexibility. So many players can play 4 or 5 different positions at least an 8 out of 10 level, and that is going to be key considering the injury that they've suffered. Of course, their downside is the injury record, yes, but I also think it's the fact that we've seen Polonia last year drop off as the season goes on. And that drop-off, if that starts to creep in again, if that's already the warning signs that are flashing right now, if they are dropping off, teams could close them down, and that promotion push that looked so likely a month ago could become in contention. Player that's caught my eye is Michael Cullen, obviously. But since he's away, I just also want to shout out Jacob Parnell. If he needs to stay fit if Polonia are going to push for promotion. It's that simple. From Polonia to Pons, back to PL1. Now, one of the hard hitters we're talking about here in the PL1. So strap yourselves in. For years now, Pons have peaked always late into the season. I think it's because they haven't always trained, more than once a week or once a month in years gone by. Now that they're training, they've actually started hot, which is great. The question is, can they maintain it? Most likely, because their tendency is to crescendo as the year goes on, to improve exponentially as the year goes on. So if they get better than what they are now, once all their players are back, this and that and the other, and their injuries stay clean, they're going to be scary come the end of the season. The fact that they have 3 boys that are in Golden Boot contention as well makes it very difficult to pick who to double mark on a weekend. Like if you have a back 4 versus their front 3, who do you pick up on? Fardod, Blake or Blake? All 3? You can't. Now I am sort of clutching at straws here because Marang have been so impressive. They have only lost 2 games. One was against Marang, one was against Tigers, and it was a game if they had back, they would probably win if they were more switched on. It was a midweek catch-up. It was weird. What I am clutching at straws at here, and I'm prepared to cut flack for it, is the midfield 3 that started most frequently due to suspensions, this, that, and the other. Is that enough of a defensive-minded midfield to be good in fun? Now, the defensive line is fine. Atchinson's come in. He's been fantastic. He looks good next to Hubbard, for example. But is that midfield, as good as it is for attacking, is it defensively strong enough? Now, Ibi Swedan's about to come back into the fold. He played the last 5 minutes of the Marion game, coming off the back of suspensions and getting back into full match sharpness. We know how good he is. But is that midfield, who do they start and how defensive-minded will it be? Because if it's too attacking-minded, can that give teams a chance to cut through them come finals time? I don't know. That's the only flaw I see from that team. That team is seriously solid. Shout out, by the way, to Alex Kwok, the 17-year-old. I watched 5 minutes of in the first round of the season before I had to go and commentate a match of the round. I watched Pons versus Workers, and I was bursting into the technical area asking Ellie, the coach, who on earth is this kid at right back, because he's about this tall. He was jumping up to about this tall, and he was fearless in every tackle. And when I found out he was 17, I was like, wow, that's very impressive. So Alex Kwok, shout out to you, by the way. You've been fantastic. But some of those Norwest boys that have come in, as I mentioned, Atchinson and Fardod's got, I think, 9 goals this year, which is fantastic. So a couple of really good standouts. But Alex Kwok at 17, what are you doing at this level, mate? From Pons, let's go to their rivals, Marion. Eye-catching player is Michael Cody. The kid killed the 21s. I mean, utterly decimated the 21s competition in the last 2 years. He's finally got to step up, and the trust from coach Kevin Guerrero and Shia Chakal to play in the first grade, and the dudes carried the form all the way through. Scored against Kellyville in midweek a couple of weeks ago in the State Cup. Dude scoring on the weekends, got a match of the round assist as well, so he's very, very good. What's impressed me is the recruitment. As Kelvin Forey shifted to a 10, how do they replace the guy who got the assist for the winning grand final moment? Nick Karamis, they've replaced him with Paddy Halaka, who's been great as well, scored just as many goals, provides something a little bit different. So the post-grand final come down has not been a difficult one. They've also got Arrow at the back, who's like the Paolo Maldini to Franco Baresi, as Arrow is to, let's say, Wal Rees and Mamouche Aguirre. Those guys aren't yet ready to go out, but they've already got a replacement who can play alongside them and learn along them in those boys' Wal and Mamouche's twilight years, for example. So the fact that Arrow is in has been fantastic too. The issue that I have with Marion, and something I've identified, is they actually have too many attacking options. I think this is also an issue for Pons as well. Marion need to test up and throw up between player loyalty and maybe someone who might be performing slightly better, and that's difficult because you've got players who have scored in grand final or in big finals games or in big games in the past, but if you've got a young player who's performing better, how do you juggle that? That's really difficult with squad chemistry. It's actually really difficult to have so many good players. That's the issue for the likes of Marion and Pons and some other teams as well. Who do you start? Who are you loyal to? Are you too loyal? It's not a problem now, per se, because you can rotate week on week. But if it gets to the grand final and someone who expects to be starting isn't starting, it's tough. Very tough. Rudy Hill just have, unfortunately, a tendency to self-implode in games. They can stick in games and they might be able to score a couple goals, but once they concede a goal, it tends to be just, they're a bunch of good mates, and so they just kind of yell at each other because they know they'll be fine come the end of the 90 minutes. Unfortunately for Rudy Hill, they do self-implode. The best thing about their season for Rudy Hill, and also the person that I'm going to harp on for all the right reasons, is Ali Hassan, the kid that came from 21-2s up and has scored a bunch of goals this year. He's been really good as a fullback. He's playing 90 minutes every single week. He is the shining light of the season and the shining light player of the season too. Best thing about Parkley men's straight away to say is their ceiling. Their ceiling is so high. If they play to a 10 out of 10, my word, are they good. But the problem is that they're inconsistent. So they don't play that 10 out of 10 each and every week. And that is a hindrance. You can't beat Polonia, knock them off their perch almost, and then go and lose to Rudy Hill at the other end of the table. That's inconsistency. And it's okay, but it's an Achilles heel. Brad Hoffsmith, recently turned 18-year-old, is a centre-back who could play at Parkley feasibly for the next 15 years. Been so impressed. Him and his brother could be the next dynasty, iconic players that stay at Parkley for years and years and years. Great player. St. Pat's standout player is undoubtedly Suhail Koya, the Destroyer. Golden Boot contender from centre-back is absolutely crazy. What a player he is. He wears 9, playing further forward. The problem about St. Pat's, though, is a problem they've had in the last couple of years. They just struggle to break down defensively the big teams. A lot of 1-0 or 2-1 losses to some other teams that are around them, near them on the table, and that can be their hindrance. What their upside is that they have individual quality of the highest calibre. Your Michael Sowa, your Tamba T-Boy Aliu, your Elvis Enchi, Yalo, who scored off the bench in the match of the round the other week. You have these great players as individuals. You have game changers, and come finals time, that could be really helpful. Prospects United's big plus is that they are a physical team who are quite boisterous, and that can be frustrating for teams at times. The problem is now that we're so far into the season and the results haven't gone their way, like for example, if they'd have won their first game against Tigers, which was very winnable, for example, the very first game of the season, the fact that we're at this point of the season now, the turn of the draw, and they still haven't got a lot of points on the board, the second the first goal goes in against them, the belief just saps out of the room like a balloon being popped. That's the problem with Prospect. So we saw them stick in the game against Workers, we saw them stick in the game against Riverstone. They should have had a first win in the Riverstone game. Unlucky in that sense that it didn't go their way. But that's just what's happening now, because that's sort of the narrative that's built up around Prospect, is that you can just sort of begin to gain a lot of momentum once you get the first goal. What they need is a moment where the opposite happens. They need a moment where they have their backs against the wall and they produce a win. And maybe they could turn the tide in the season. They're not out of it. Their reserve grade team is good as well. Club championship is not over yet. Matteo Vella has been the standout player for me so far. That second match of the round game where he played his first game on the live stream was fantastic. The guy is really good technically and really dogged in attack. So look after him. Blacktown Workers, 3 wins on the bounce for the boys, who are looking good off the back of their reserve grade grand final win last year. Arguably, I know that my little thing up here says that they have the best, but arguably the best squad depth in the entire league. You could say that considering they won the reserve grade grand final, I guess. I wouldn't be mad. Standout is Danny Mack. I don't care if that's predictable. I don't care if that's typical. It's the truth. The guys at the baseline of every single beautiful goal that Workers scored. And my word, they score some great looking goals. Some sexy football, as it says up here. My question is, do Workers have the mentality to break open that top 3 of Dooney, Pons and Marion? I want you to prove me wrong here, Workers, if you're watching this, because if you look at Doonside, they have a backs against the wall, us against them sort of siege mentality. Pons have a chip on their shoulder from their years of being good, and Marion are the defending champions, so of course they know they're good. We know that you guys have had some some training issues earlier in the year. Now, those might have dwindled away and you guys are back to training at your best, but I'm not sure that would happen in some of the other clubs. Can you break through that mould? Good luck to you. Quakers Juniors Women's Premier League side, well, their big plus is their sheer star power. You want to form a Spartans first grade goal scorer? Boom. Have her. Izzy Grek, the star player to watch out for. You want some Mandurah Town Rangers first grade representatives? Boom. Have them and their coach as well. Star power will win them games. So the issue is those girls are all really young. So when Parkley and Kellyville or Norwest and whoever else makes the finals, but particularly those first two, if they get to finals times and they dig in their heels because they are experienced that tenacity that we know we need to win today or there is no tomorrow, can you compete with that? Because it's a different mentality. That's the only question I have. And that's okay. That's a good question to be able to answer. You can prove yourself to this season. Quakers girls to Quakers boys, Quakers juniors, their strength is their intent. Their strength is their intent. Their intent is to play football. The issue is that they're running out of time to get good at it in the season because the points aren't coming just yet. Next year, yes. The year after that, absolutely yes. It'll show. Should this team stick together? It'll show, don't get me wrong. What they are alleviated by is the fact that there might be a safety net underneath them to keep them safe this year. Their issue is their physicality. I know that this says grit, but yeah, they can just get sort of bumped off the ball at times, and that's okay because they're a young squad and that mongrel will grow as they grow, literally grow. Standout, by the way, is Jeff Mogger, your top goal scorer. Dude's a phenom on the ball, a real talent. Look after him. Marion girls, their big plus is that they've learned from the mistakes of last year. They got the recruitment right this year. They started earlier. They took themselves more seriously, I would say. My issue with Marion girls is just be a little more fearless. I know this says up here, don't be as timid. Don't be as timid. Go for it a bit more. Have the guile to really send it. Send it sometimes. Send it, Marion. Just send it. Talia Graham, couple of goals this year. New signing this year. Great to have you in the competition. You've been good. Caught my eye. For Glenwood, Marco Bravo Ortiz is the player who's obviously caught the eye of everybody in the competition, but also want to shout out to Cameron Hayes and to Jake Baptiste on the right-hand side of that defence, as we talked about on the live stream last weekend. Their strength is to use their wings so effectively. Again, especially down that right-hand side, my word, they just created so much. Their wingers provide so much width. Somehow then their fullbacks extend on that and they just kill you out wide. One drawback that kind of comes to my mind right now is potentially a language barrier. I don't think that will be an issue because they speak the language of football. But I think their one sort of drawback is the fact that the club championship isn't going to be kind to them this year. So the reserve grade team isn't quite going as well as the first grade team. And that's okay, but it means that it might hinder their promotion push because Polonia are up there in both. So even if they beat Polonia this weekend, they need that reserve grade team to back it up as well because they could beat Polonia and then hold on to the lead all year in first grade. But can that reserve grade team help them with some bolstered points? Doonside Hawks are the fittest, fastest team with some of the best individual players in the competition. It's simple as that. They are proven winners. Their issue, and straight to the point, is that I think that they're too reliant on a couple of players to score the goals. We saw in the match of the round versus Marion, and we talked about how the fact that they were missing 2 players, they're actually missing 3 players, and all 3 of those players were their only goal scorers for the year, and that was almost at the halfway point of the season. So only 3 players had scored goal for them, Ethan Icke, Jake Taylor, and Marcus Correa. They were all away, so they had no goal scorers. To be fair, they scored 2 that day, but still, you get where I'm coming from. Ethan Icke has a holiday that he's going on soon. Everyone knows that. Can they cope without him? It might be that the premiership is out of reach, but perhaps the championship come finals time when he's back. You know, anyone can win those games. The eye catcher is Marcus Correa. That dude can hit a ball. Eastern Creek are the best attacking set-piece team in the entire division. Done. If you watch the Champions League final, you know how important a good set-piece taker is. Their drawback that I've identified is a bit of a facade, and I need to be careful because I haven't watched them yet. I haven't had the pleasure to watch them yet. It's a bit wishy-washy this, but have they got a 10 out of 10 player, individual quality 10 out of 10 player, who can just have a moment, you know, beat 3 players and score a goal? Or just smack it from 40 yards? Have they got a player like a game changer like that? A bit of individual mercurial talent who can just change a game. I don't know. I haven't watched them yet. When it comes to finals time and the chips are down, this, that, and the other, and it's just not going well, have you got a guy who just says, I'll step up? Who is that guy? The standout, as I said, I haven't watched, so I don't know. Maybe it's Dimi Petratos. For the Tigers girls, well, it's been a rough first season, but we all knew that was going to happen. Sunday's match of the round was a fantastic showing, though, and Elise Desira clearly stood out in that game for me. Your strength is that you've improved week on week, and come the end of the season, I reckon you'll have points on the board, no doubt. I think the other big plus is that nobody in your squad is discontent with the current situation because you knew what you were getting into at the start of the year, and the players that signed on to play knew it as well. So no one's sitting there thinking, I can't wait to leave this team, which is great. The main downside is, of course, that the squad clearly wasn't ready just yet. You missed the first year of the WPL, and that's fine, but it means you had a year to catch up on. And treading water while weighted down, wearing a backpack at the moment. And that's hard, but you're getting better. The Town Rangers, whoa! How many high-scoring games are you going to have, guys? Far out. How are you third with a negative goal difference? What? Manchester Rangers over here. Their strength is their goal scoring. Their weakness is their goal conceding. It's that simple. Heart attack football. It's so much fun to watch as a neutral, but I'm sure Blake Morris is having some fun on the sideline as well. You guys are a joy to watch, by the way. Keep it up. Just keep entertaining the masses. I love it. Good luck in the finals. Signing of the season for the entire Blacktown region. Is it maybe Mert or Hahn? Could be. Stood out to me. Hat-trick last weekend. Newbury Bulls, again, like Town Rangers, your positive is similar to your negative. The positive is that you're so young, but the negative is that you're so young. Like Quakers Juniors in division above you, you can learn from that. You are just experiencing things for the first time as a group. You guys are young, you guys are barely out of school, some of you. You haven't played senior football, and that's okay. You're learning the range, you're grinding this year, and that's cool. That's fine. You're also not really coached. You sort of coach each other and you change things in game, and it's very admirable. I like your tactical flexibility when you eventually develop. Yes, I'm a left winger. Yes, I'm a centre mid. You'll be okay. But it's fun, and you can still make finals. Go for it. Heritier Panakatamba. That dude has PL1 written all over him. Class. Penultimate team of the day. Now, on to Oakville. What I think has happened to Oakville is they've had a bit of post-2023 grand final promotion push. Didn't quite get over the line in either of those things. Fatigue. That come down is difficult to compete with mentally and physically. They had some players go out as well. Of course, Yannick Mifsud left the team. But they did also retain Mwene Malenja, who's been my standout player. Even though I haven't watched them, his goal scoring on the score sheet is typically brilliant, as it was last year, as it launched them into that final series. Their problem has been inconsistency this year, and I think it's off the back of that fatigue. So how can you beat Glenwood, who could potentially go first place next week, 5-1, and then lose to Newbury 7-3? That 7-3 is the craziest score I've ever seen in my 4 years here. The great thing about Oakville, and the thing that makes them so entertaining, is that they score so many goals. If they lock in defensively and they can finish, just slip into fourth place and make finals, they could easily win it. Easily win it, no doubt. They have finals experience. They've got that oomph to try and do one better than last year. So absolutely they could do a push, but they just need to lock in defensively. That's all. And finally, Riverston. 15 scored, 15 conceded, a 0 goal difference. Their big plus is that they're very difficult to beat and they stay in games for 90 minutes. They are consistent for the full 90 minutes. On all of the games that they haven't drawn this year, on only one occasion have they not won or lost by 1 goal. They're not taking away and running away with it, which is sort of a downside, but they're also not being beaten by a considerable amount of goals only on that one occasion against Ponds where they were. So they're very difficult to beat 9 times out of 10, as we've seen. Or should I say 7 times out of 8. Their strength is their game management in that sense. The fact that they can stay in games, the fact that they can see out games with a 1-goal lead is very impressive. It takes guts, as we saw against Prospect, for example, that late push. I think their weakness has actually been the unluckiness with the draw. They've only played 2 games at home. They're undefeated at home, 2 draws, one of them being the Prospect game. But they've only had 2 home games. So if that sausage sizzle is blaring and players can be motivated by that and they can have a good home run-in, they're on a bad outside shot of finals. It's a long way away. Only 2 wins this season, 2 draws. But they could do it. They could certainly do it. I can reveal to you has been killing it on the votes. So he's doing really, really well. And he's caught my eye as well. I can't tell you exactly how well he's doing, but he's doing very, very well. Anthony Messina. That's going to do it for episode 13 of the Blacktown Premier League podcast. My word, I haven't spoke that much on this in a long, long time. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you made it to this point of the video, you are a superstar. Don't forget to leave a like. If you like the opinion that I had on your team, leave an extra big like. Leave a comment on what your opinion was on any of the opinions that I gave. I want to start a bit of discourse with you guys. Let's chat about what makes teams great. Let's chat about great players. I love having these conversations. This is the best league in the whole world. And I will see you guys next week for the next episode of the podcast. Cue the outro music. See ya.